One is we have to look the human social development and look transformations that we go through. And we learn and unlearn. We learn things every day, but the more you learn, there are others also you unlearn that you believed in before. Because of the new information, because of the new knowledge that you got. Reflection and learning through experience, and then reflecting each day's experience and adding that to this reservoir that you have is very important. As far as we are alive, we are learning every day. There is no limitation. But we have to analyze that and not stuck in one place. It's like a train to Washington, and if you drop the train in Harvard, you don't know what is beyond Harvard. But if you go all the way to Washington, you know New York, you know New Jersey, you know Philadelphia. So knowledge is like that road. We have to analyze. Another thing I will add is the interconnections, the connectedness of the humans in the world. Where something happens, it impacts all of us. Social media we were talking about and the technology of today made the world very united. So a disease that happens in one place can happen in 24 hours in another place today. That's how we are connected. So let us feel what's happening is somewhere. It's not something that doesn't impact you.
One thing I always caution the Occupy Wall Street movements is like to be hijacked by another forces which will try to force or impose some kind of a violence tools to use it. This is what will ruin any kind of movement, using violence stuff, and this is the same way like Hamas movements try to hijack the Palestinian issue by using suicidal bombing and using people as a kind of a shield to kill other people innocent and consider all people as a kind of bilateral. Happen in Iraq, happen in Palestine, in Gaza, and elsewhere. I'm worried about the future when some kind of radical groups try to infiltrate the Occupy movement and try to use some kind of violence. I feel like still the non-violence movement, and we have a history, global history of using this, and we can still like feel we can overcome using the non-violence movement.
What I would like to say is just very quick to address the question of what we have to do for the situation in the developing countries. I think that the main problem is that the industrial countries, whether Western Europe or the United States, they don't help in reforming the development of those underdeveloped or developing countries. Instead, they deform the development of those countries. Because when they support or offer any kind of assistance, they have their interest in the first place. The United States and the Western European countries. Because you cannot understand, they are calling for democracy, protecting human rights in some countries, and at the same time, they ally themselves with other countries. They don't have that good history of human rights protection. Even they ally themselves with one family government, like in Saudi Arabia, like United Arab Emirates, like in Qatar, like in Bahrain. That's why we question the intention of the European countries and the United States of America. And also, all the dictators, whether in Africa, in Latin America, in Asia, somehow they have ties with the United States of America. When the role is over, they have to go. But if there is something to do for the United States or Western Europe countries, they can stay. And they can find a lot of reason to keep them in power. In Sudan, we have such experience. Whether in the first dictatorship of Abul, which came to power in 58, or Nimer, who came to power in 69. Even the radical Islamic regime now in Sudan has been supported by the United States of America, because there are some common interests. This one of the things. The other thing, I'll come to the name of the Arab Spring. It's because these things are bothering me anyway. Really, it's bothering me. It is not a name. It is not just Arab Spring. The way we talk about it, it became like a concept. It's not just a name. It is a concept. And a concept that relates to a historical human right violation. So we need to be very careful about coining, if I could say, coining names, because it has a human right dimension, and then we got to be very sensitive towards such things.
You know, going last, I feel like I should have something, really profound and sweeping to say about the whole conference, other than how happy I was to be here. But just briefly, I may have missed the train or missed the stop on the way to DC, but I don't think for the most part, as powerless as we are, that you have to worry about whatever you do on the internet. I do think the biggest worry about the internet is how few people are really on it. And we forget. We almost automatically project the fact that you're on great free wireless here in Springfield College or whatever, that everybody's on, everybody can communicate. People talk about Iran and the Twitter revolution, and there were like less than 2,000 Twitter users in the whole country of Iran. You know how big Iran is? It's like California on steroids. This is a big country. Talk about New Orleans. We just had a newspaper owned, I think, by the same people that own the paper here in Springfield. The Newhouse family decided to go digital. So there'll only be 3 days of real newspaper, 4 days when it's on the internet. 40% of the city of New Orleans ain't on no internet. It's not on the internet. When I'm working in Africa, it's all metered access. So people know how to use email. They speak English in many cases, but if you ask people to do a Google search, it took a long time for me to figure out, sure, at 1 Kenya shillings for, 5 minutes of internet, nobody's out there surfing. They're not waiting on the internet. They don't know what's out there on the internet. Nobody's got the money to afford to do that, and you don't have the connections that are good enough. For Mexico, we talk about the 1%. You can have a Carlos Slim, one of the richest people in the world, and almost no access for working people in Mexico because it's all metered through, the telephone system, and that's the monopoly that Carlos Slim controls. In fact, he's one of the major stockholders in the New York Times now. I mean, it's a wild world out there, and if somehow we think that it's out there quaking, wondering what we're going to do, we've got some news for you. It's not just communication between all of us. It's our ability to really make change in very fundamental local ways to make sure people in Springfield, people in Hartford actually are on the internet and start to learn how to comfortably use the kind of communication channels we've got. We're not threatening anybody now. Our glass is way less than half full. We've got lots of work to do, and the whole world is waiting for all of you to do it. Thanks.